For a decade, China told the world it would lead the future. Electric cars, artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing. By 2025, it promised China would be unstoppable. But something changed, and it's happening quietly. In just 4 months, $6.2 billion in foreign tech capital vanished. 1,800 startups shut down. Dozens of government programs suspended without notice. The world kept watching for a collapse. But it didn't come with headlines. Came with silence. Factory parks still run their lights at night. But not because there's work. Because no one ever turned them off. Youth unemployment spiked, then was removed from official reports. Not lowered, removed. And the question no one is asking: if everything is still working, why does it feel like it's already stopped? This isn't a war. This isn't a crash. This is something else. A system pulling itself inward, turning down the volume, and pretending it's still rising. But numbers don't lie. And lately, China stopped reporting them. The promise was simple. China would lead the next industrial revolution. Smart factories, electric mobility, autonomous everything. It almost happened, until the money disappeared. Over the last 10 years, local governments across China poured billions into high-tech zones. They offered free land, cut taxes, issued grants to EV companies and AI startups. It worked for a while, but the bill came due. According to the IMF, China's local government debt now exceeds $13 trillion. The money ran dry, and Beijing started pulling back. In late 2024, over 60 subsidy programs were shut down without warning. Startups suddenly lost access to funding. Some paused operations. Many never came back. It wasn't just economic tightening. It was silence. No announcements. No public reports. Just gone. Then came the second layer of pressure. The WTO. Beijing knew it was vulnerable. The US and EU had already won 4 cases targeting China's industrial subsidies. New lawsuits were coming. Retaliatory tariffs were on the table. If China continued funding its tech champions, it risked losing export access to its biggest markets. If it stopped, its tech sector would collapse. Either way, the outcome was pain. So Beijing picked the quiet route. Stop spending. Don't explain. Just hope no one notices. But people did. At the same time China cut support, the US doubled down. $53 billion through the CHIPS Act. $370 billion for green energy and EVs through the Inflation Reduction Act. Intel expanded in Ohio. TSMC in Arizona. Ford in Michigan. Apple shifted supply chains to India and Vietnam. This wasn't coincidence. It was a shift. China tried to adapt. It routed goods through third countries: Vietnam, Malaysia, Mexico. But by late 2024, the US tightened enforcement. New origin tracking rules. Transfer pricing audits. If a product was made in China, it stayed Chinese. And the tariff followed. There was no escape hatch left. So now the machine slows. Not because of a decision, but because there's nowhere else to go. You can't fund it. You can't ship it. You can't fake it. What happens when a system built on state support runs out of state? We're watching it unfold. Not with crashes, not with riots, but with half-finished buildings, silent factories, disappearing contracts, and a government that no longer publishes the numbers. That's not transition. That's retreat. And the world is beginning to notice. On paper, China's tech boom is still alive. But walk through the streets of Shenzhen or Hangzhou, and something feels off. The tech parks are quiet. The job boards are stale. And the optimism is gone. You won't see this on Chinese state television. They still speak of global leadership, of innovation, of national strength. But the numbers, when they're still visible, tell a different story. NIO's first quarter revenue in 2025 dropped 38%. New orders? Cut in half. Smaller EV firms didn't report losses. They simply stopped reporting or shut down. AI labs once filled with talent are now dark. Entire buildings sit empty. Security guards outnumber researchers. It didn't happen in a crash. It happened in whispers, in paused projects, in canceled grants, in futures deferred. Then the youth unemployment number disappeared. Literally. Until April 2025, it was tracked monthly. Then, without warning, it was gone. Not adjusted, not revised, erased. But leaked provincial data showed the truth. Over 21.8% of young workers were jobless. And that's just what we know. In Chongqing and Chengdu, graduate supply for food delivery jobs. Most don't get them. The platforms are full. A few return to school. A few return home. Most stop searching. Online, it's harder to hide. A video surfaced from Suzhou. 5 young men in suits, standing outside a shuttered AI hub, each holding a sign. We'll research for free. No one stopped. No one hired them. The signs fluttered in the wind. The men didn't speak. And the video ends there. No message. No call to action. Just stillness. Foreign investors saw it coming. Between December 2024 and April 2025, more than $6.2 billion left China's tech sector. It wasn't dramatic. It was steady, quiet. TSMC shifted sourcing. Intel walked away from a Shanghai deal. Huawei moved testing to Kazakhstan. There was no scandal, just redirection. And yet, state media continues to say things are fine. The innovation engine is working. The plan is on track. But when numbers are missing, and buildings are dark, and people stop asking questions, you don't need an official statement. You already know. This is not about one company or one program. It's a deeper crack, a gap between the story China tells itself and what's actually happening on the ground. And that gap is widening. This wasn't just economic slowdown. It wasn't a policy error. It was something else. Quiet step back from a game China used to control. For years, Beijing used subsidies like fuel. Push hard, grow fast, dominate sectors. It worked, until the world pushed back. The US didn't try to block every Chinese company. It built a system of pressure, layer by layer. First came the tariffs. Then came the export bans. Then came the lawsuits. The World Trade Organization ruled against China multiple times. And more cases were waiting. Subsidies weren't just domestic tools anymore. They were international targets. If China kept funding EVs, chips, and AI, it would face tariffs that could erase entire export markets. But if it stopped, its champions would fall. There was no good option, only retreat or punishment. At the same time, America moved fast. The CHIPS Act, $53 billion. The Inflation Reduction Act, $370 billion. Factories, refineries, battery plants built across the US and allied countries. The new rules didn't just encourage investment. They changed the map. China could no longer reroute shipments through Vietnam or Malaysia. New origin tracking rules followed the product all the way back to its source. If it was made in China, the label stuck, and so did the tariff. The supply chain that once made China powerful was now being rebuilt without it. Deals signed with Mexico, India, Japan, Australia. Europe shifting battery supply away from Chinese cobalt. The US locking in rare earth access through Australia and Africa. China wasn't pushed out of the center. It was designed out of it. And this is the twist. Beijing didn't announce retreat. It just stopped moving forward, cut spending, stopped releasing data, avoided open conflict, chose silence over confrontation. Why? Because the war wasn't worth fighting. Because every move forward came with a bigger cost. A new restriction, a new sanction, a new lawsuit. So they stepped back. Not because they lost, but because they couldn't keep playing under new rules. That's not collapse. It's something colder. A system realizing it no longer has the space to expand. And no one inside is allowed to say it out loud. But the world sees it. In the missing numbers. In the empty labs. In the markets moving on. The decision to cut subsidies didn't just affect companies. It rippled through everything. From factories to families. From boardrooms to bedroom lights. It started in the tech sector. More than 1,800 startups shut down between late 2023 and early 2025. Some couldn't pay staff. Some vanished overnight. Most didn't make headlines. NIO's revenues dropped. BYD slowed hiring. Smaller EV firms didn't even bother pretending. The funding was gone. The growth had stalled. And the energy, the feeling that this was the future, just faded. The people inside those companies felt it first. Software engineers laid off. AI researchers moved to gig work. Some tried to freelance. Some tried to leave the country. One graduate from Tsinghua University now delivers groceries in Shenzhen. He keeps his ID badge. Says it reminds him that he was once part of the future. He doesn't say that out loud anymore. Then came the families. Spending dropped. Parents stopped buying new school uniforms. Birth rates fell. In high-tech cities like Shenzhen, births declined over 23%. Not because of ideology, but because of anxiety. In Chengdu, young couples canceled weddings. In Suzhou, kindergartens closed. Not enough students. The future didn't feel delayed, felt abandoned. And the data started disappearing too. Youth unemployment above 21.8%. But the number didn't stay. It was removed from national reports in April 2025. Just like it was in 2023. Only this time, no one asked why. People understood. When the government stops counting, it's because the truth is worse than the number. Graduates stopped looking for jobs. Some returned to their hometowns. Some stayed in cities doing nothing. In Hangzhou, job fairs are half empty. In Chongqing, a tech recruiter said, "There's nothing to recruit for." No one filed protests. They just left. Foreign investors didn't wait. $6.2 billion pulled from Chinese tech in just 4 months. TSMC cut contracts. Intel canceled deals. Even Huawei shifted some operations abroad. No public statements. No drama. Just motion. Motion away from China. Then the global map began to change. Smartphone assembly moved to India. Battery supply chains to Europe. Rare earth contracts signed with Australia and the US. Vietnam rose. Mexico expanded. Africa was rediscovered. China still produced, but less, and less visibly. On the streets, the change is harder to measure. Dormitories are quiet. The factory canteens serve fewer meals. Food delivery apps are full of job seekers, not customers. In Dongguan, several unexplained deaths in worker housing went unreported. Hospitals noted the cause as stress-induced collapse. In one district, a rumor spread. The local government was paying people to go home, not to work, to leave. At the policy level, it looks like restructuring. At the human level, it looks like giving up. The machine keeps turning. Some factories stay open. Some offices report stable productivity. But on the ground, people speak differently. They say, "This won't last," or worse, "This already ended." And no one corrects them, because collapse doesn't always come as a crash. Sometimes it comes as a shrug, a quiet decision not to try again. And in China's high-tech heartland, that's exactly what's spreading. The lights are still on. The machines still hum. Some factories still file reports. Some offices still list job openings no one will fill. On paper, China is still growing, still innovating, still leading. But off paper, the numbers are missing. The workers are missing. The spark is missing. People aren't protesting. They're just walking away. Engineers driving delivery scooters. Graduates returning to villages. Parents pulling kids out of school. Investors shifting money abroad. And no one talks about it. Not in the media. Not in public. Not even at home. They just say, "It's not like before," and leave it there. So the question isn't, is China collapsing or winning? It's simpler than that. What keeps moving? When the people inside no longer believe in where it's going?